Welcome to the Worldwide Canna-Report, where we'll hear good news on harm reduction from the UN, as well as a report from Basel, Switzerland, and bad news in Ireland, good news in the UK, and bad news in Belgium. I'm Lex Pelger. I do Canna Education for CV Sciences. The makers of these excellent CBD and THC products are shipping to you anywhere in the US. On the cannabinoids, ask me anything. In a historic first at the UN, the Commission on Narcotic Drugs recognized harm reduction. Despite opposition from Russia and China, over 70% of the 53 members voted to include harm reduction in the final resolution. Healthcare organizations around the world cheered this resolution for its encouragement of member states to develop and implement harm reduction practices. A breathtaking display of sanity from the UN. Then, in the Swiss canton of Basel, they released their first interim report on adults getting cannabis from the pharmacy. There have been 378 participants, and they were allowed to choose from 6 products at the pharmacy. No healthcare problems have been reported, but the participants expressed extreme dissatisfaction with the selection of products. There was only hash and flour available, and they were hoping to get edibles, oils, or e-liquids. But overall, this report is a good news for the slow rollout of adult-use cannabis in Switzerland. Meanwhile, disappointing news in Ireland, where the medical cannabis program has only signed up 53 patients in the last few years. Ireland has been struggling forward towards a widespread and robust medical cannabis program, but for now, each case must be approved by someone at the Ministry of Health. Then in the UK, a small victory for medical cannabis patients. One driver was arrested and charged with driving under the influence, even though they were a medical cannabis patient. That charge was eventually dismissed because the police simply didn't submit any of the evidence. However, that same person was charged a year later by the same police officer, and this time they refused to give any saliva or blood samples to the arresting officer. The judge decided that in this case it felt more like harassment than like a real charge and upheld this person's right to not submit those samples. And so while this did not set a binding precedent for other cases, it is leading to more talk about reforming the cannabis driving laws of the UK. Meanwhile, in Belgium, the butt of all jokes here in France, the Prime Minister Benjamin Macron said under his watch they will not be legalizing any drugs, including cannabis. And yes, before you come at me, Germany did legalize this week, but I've covered it so many times that we know what it means and we know where it's going. So good for you, our large neighbor to the east.